Hello and welcome to the Swan Song Project Podcast. My name is Ben Buddy Slack and I'm the founder of the Swan Song Project and the host of this podcast. The Swan Song Project is a charity based here in England and we support people living with terminal illnesses or dealing with bereavement to write and record their own original song. We believe in celebrating lives, making memories and leaving legacies. If you'd like to find out more about the charity, if you're interested in being supported by us in some way to write your own legacy song, you can check out our website, which is swansongproject.co.uk. There's also plenty of ways on there you can support the charity if you would like to. The podcast features songwriters. Each episode I have a different songwriter on and we talk about their process of how they write their songs and they share with us a songs meaningful to them in some way related to bereavement. The podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those places. Please like, share and subscribe if you enjoy the podcast. We're trying to boost our audience at the moment. You can get all the back catalogue on there as well. This episode features Joachim Cooder and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, today I'm here with Joachim Cooder. Thank you much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk to you. I'm a big fan of your music, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation. For anyone who's new to the Swan Song Project podcast, we have a different songwriter on every week, and we talk about one of their songs, how they wrote it and arranged it, and ask them for a songwriting tip. And I also ask them for a song that's meaningful to them in some way relating to bereavement. So I'll hand you over to Joachim now and ask if you can introduce your song for us, please.
Yeah, I chose Over That Road I'm Bound to Go, which is from the new record I just put out in October. And I thought it would be a perfect one to talk about for your podcast because during this record I was making, my wife's dad got very sick, and so there was we had, I don't know, our daughter was 2 years old, and so there was a lot of heaviness around that time, and well, so Over That Road I'm Bound is all the songs on that record are by Uncle Dave Macon, and he was a very famous banjo player born in the late 1800s in Tennessee, and who sort of repopularized when later in life he became very famous in his 50s, and he took all this music from the 1800s, which was very popular at the time, which would have been like medicine show music and vaudeville, sort of minstrel music and all this folk and blues, and repopularized it in the 20s and became sort of the first star of the Grand Ole Opry. That's just to give you a little background on what my record, what the project was. But then I would sometimes come to some of his songs where it seemed that I loved something about the chorus or an idea, but what he was saying, the story, it didn't pertain. It was so esoteric, or maybe it was Over That Road I'm Bound to Go. I think he's about to be hanged, or he's talking about judge and jury. He killed the man, this whole thing. And it was a little too rough kind of as a plot for what I loved the idea of. He's going over that road. And so I thought I wanted to maybe extract a different, or put in a different meaning or just a different feeling. And we were, like I started off saying, going through this time with my wife's dad, and I started thinking about just what are little moments you'd be thinking about maybe as you were kind of in your final moments or hours alive. And I just kind of let my mind wander. I wasn't even sort of saying didn't set out to do it, but I just started thinking, and things that started coming to me were sort of very mundane things, like a certain road that I rode my bike down in Northern California, just seeing where we ended up. We knew the ocean was somewhere. We just kept riding on it. So I mentioned that road. I just thought of it, and then I thought of the smell of a certain plant in Northern California, and just these kinds of little moments that struck me more than really big moments. It was these little things, these little feelings, like smells and just that random day. And the final verse was, as he was in his final days, we had the huge eclipse, and this whole day was me driving around trying to find the eclipse glasses, like the little things you're supposed to wear so you can look up into the sun. And their whole family was there, and I was driving around, like you couldn't find any in the whole city, and there was this urgency to find the the eclipse glasses, and I found some, like, on some guy was selling them, like, out of his house for so much money because nobody could get him anywhere. And but Juliet's dad was not well, and he was, at that point, he was too far gone, so the whole family was out, and he was very science oriented and astronomy oriented, and so this would have been such a huge, it was just so just made it so much worse, like what was that he couldn't come see it. So we were all out there as he was inside, and we were all looking up into the sky. So that was that. And so I wanted to say in the song that he was letting us know that not to worry, that he would see it when he goes over that road.
It's a beautiful song. And firstly, so sorry to hear about your wife's dad. And so you say that was when you were working on the album. So was that when you had like parts of the songs arranged and you were still writing different bits to them?
Yeah, it was all these things would sort of happen on the spot. I had general notions that I would do certain songs, but I didn't know until I started recording it whether I would, if I were going to change the lyrics, I would sometimes kind of do it on the spot, or see into it in a new way on a certain day and be like, that's the key. And it was, and a friend of mine, Raina Gellert, who plays fiddle on the whole record, she is also a big time Uncle Dave Macon. She knows all his songs, and she knew a lot more songs than I did, and she would keep sending them to me even as when I thought we were done, she would still send new ones, and I would say, oh, okay, we got to do this one now. and I the last song is When the Train Comes Along, and that one is another one that we could talk about, but it didn't occur to me how I was going to sing it until sort of that day when a story came. I changed the lyrics on that one too. I didn't do it all over the place. So most of them I kept the way he had them, and I just made the music very different. But on a few of them, when it felt right and it didn't feel forced, I tinkered with the lyrics and told a different story.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, let's hear the I'll see the video for the Over the Road I'm Bound to Go, and then we'll carry on talking about it afterwards.
My stars shining bright while I walk alone tonight. Every station I pass by, thought I heard little Ella cry. I'm bound to go over that road. I'm bound to go. Coyote brush in the air, might call you up when I get there. I might see rain, I might see snow, but over that road I'm bound to go. Bound to go. Over that road, bound to go. Just one stop before I go, right down Tennessee Valley Road. Every station I pass by, thought I heard little Ella cry. I'm bound to go over that road. I'm bound to go. Better put these over your eyes when you look up in the sky. I'll see it too when I go over that road, just so you know. Weep not, my dear honey, I'm bound to go. Bound to go. Over that road, bound to go.
Okay, brilliant. So that was Over the Road I'm Bound to Go, originally written by Dave McCon.
Yeah, Macon, Uncle Dave Macon.
Uncle Dave Macon. But yeah, arranged and rewritten in parts by yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a beautiful arrangement. I mean, the whole album, I've been a bit obsessed with it since it came out. I listen to it regularly.
Oh my goodness, thank you.
Yeah, there's the whole feel of the whole album's just so entrancing in such a kind of relaxing way. The thing I love about it just feels like it's very like gentle, but like keeps you hooked with it.
Oh, I thank you so much for saying that. I mean, the main thing is the instrument itself, which is this electric Mbira. Like you said, it puts you in a gentle trance-like state, and you just, that was once anything I start with that, and then it just all goes, in that way. And his songs are catchy, and it just there was something about putting those two things together that made this nice, like you said, gentle kind of trance-like scene.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that it doesn't sound like any other record that I'd heard before, which is partly that combination of the Mbira with the types of songs. When I first heard it, it was just like, yeah, it's got that really original mixture to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really good. And so interested in how you came to what was the incentive to do that project, really, to take Uncle Dave's songs and to arrange them in these ways?
Well, it was a bit of an accident, because when I was growing up, my dad played a lot of banjo and around the house, and we would I would just sit and listen to him play, and he would go from song to song, whatever would come in his head. And one of the ones that I really loved was one of the ones that I did on this record called Morning Blues. I didn't know at the time, he didn't say, now this is Morning Blues by Uncle Dave Macon. I mean, I was, so young. I love that song. And now all these decades later, I have kids of my own, and I brought them to visit my parents one day, and he was playing the banjo. I was in the other room, and I heard him start this song, and I said, wait, what is that? And he said, Morning Blues, Uncle Dave Macon. And it just came flooding back to me, and I saw that I was also watching my kids just sitting there listening in a very kind of probably how I had when I was their age. So I grabbed the Mbira and just started doing kind of what I would do along with him, and seeing how it fit in a way perfectly with my own stuff I do on the Mbira. And I started playing it in my live show. And afterwards, like after the first time I played it, there was like a little line of people who wanted to, they all just asked the same thing. What was that song, Morning Blues? Did you write that? Who wrote that? And it was like the only thing they wanted to talk about. And I thought, oh, okay. And so I got this big box set of his music. It's like 10 CDs that this label out of Germany called Bear Family, they make these definitive kind of country music box sets. And so I got his and started playing it around the house. And then my daughter became obsessed with it. And it would every morning she'd sit down for breakfast. I would have to put on disc 5. It had to be disc 5 of the Uncle Dave box set. And it needed to be in a certain order. And he did kind of like, he had this funny way of introducing the songs, and he would laugh at himself, and she would kind of, it was as if he was in the room, and even though he was from like 100 years ago, and he was very present in her mind, and she would kind of almost talk to him. And so we listened to it so much that I ended up learning all these songs, the ones that I basically learned all her favorite songs, and thought at a certain point, God, I've learned 5 or 6 of these, I should record them. And then once I got Raina involved, she sent me a bunch more that I'd somehow missed on the box set, or they weren't on there. And it seemed like a good thing to do, to try and put it out, find somebody who might be interested.
Yeah.
So it was very accidental.
Yeah, that's a good story. Was
yeah.
Just in case any of our listeners don't know, your dad's Joachim Cooder, who's like music royalty, really, isn't he? He's a complete legend of music. He's played on many of my favorite albums over the years. But him playing that for you at such a young age, and then playing it for your children, would he just play? I mean, I'm assuming he played a lot of songs for you when you were younger, but is there something about that song that he would play? Why he would play it for children? Is it something that is there anything there?
Maybe he would play a bunch of songs. Like he would go kind of just one to the next, just go, whatever, because you just kind of keep going, and as you're playing a thing, I think song would come into his head. But there is something about Morning Blues, and that's probably why he played it and because all of my daughter's friends, who are all 5, 6, 7 years old, they all love the record I put out. They're like my biggest fans, and it's the funnest thing to see them in the morning. You know, they're like, Joachim, they have their own names for the song. Like they call it by different things, and they always tell me their favorites. And so it's just, I think there's something that kids, I feel like it's like all ages. I don't know if it's the Imbira and his songs are just so pleasing. Whatever it is, it seems like kids really like it, which I think is amazing, because I feel like kids are bombarded by such kind of in your face music. I don't know, like if you listen to what kids music, like music that people make specifically for kids, it's so brash and it's so it's so over the top and loud and kooky and sort of grotesque, and I feel like they could stand to hear something also a little, it doesn't have to be like that. They don't have to be hit over the head,
Yeah.
We would take our daughter to like these, those kind of gyms where there's balls they jump in, and there's sort of like a lead, like a teacher. I don't know. It's when they were really little, and they would just blast music, like pop, like top 40 sort of. And I'm like, why do you guys, why do you think they need this? I don't understand why, you know what I mean? It's like this thing that I would always ask them. I'd be like, where is it written that, is it in your policy that you need to like blast their heads off? There are these poor little kids who are trying to, like, why do you need, I mean, I was like, we're not coming back here unless you stop this. And of course, like, what do they care? Anyways.
Yeah. Maybe people are underestimating kids' taste in music.
That's what I'm getting at. There's a better way.
Yeah. And like, I guess a lot of the time kids aren't given the option of what music do you actually want to listen to. A lot of the time kids are brought up on the parents' music, aren't they? But or put in those situations, it's like, here's generic children music to listen to.
Yeah.
And it's a while before they can make their decisions normally, isn't it, of what they actually want to hear.
Hopefully their parents' music is a better option. And of course, now there's young parents, so I don't know what the kids are listening to. I always imagine, like, because I'm 42, I feel like my friends listen, like their parents probably played them a lot of like Beatles and like there's a certain era, but now I don't know what parents today are. I guess I'm playing them Uncle Dave Macon. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's a good place to be.
Yeah.
I'm interested in going back to what you're saying about changing the lyrics and things for different songs. And so you mentioned that kind of happened quite naturally with Over the Road, based on the other stuff that was going on at the time. Was that how it was with all of them, or did you have certain ones where you were like, I want to tell a different story here, or did that just happen naturally throughout the album?
Well, there was another one called Come Along Buddy.
That's one of my favorites on the album.
Oh, good. Thank you. I love that one too, because one of the main reasons, that was the first one I recorded. And that one, I love I kept the chorus, getting happy, don't you know, not come along, buddy, don't you want to go? But then each verse, he would say these little things like, who's that girl since I've been gone, something with a little red dress on, or I don't know, it was something, just these little 1 or 2 stanza verses, and then he would sing the chorus, and they didn't even really tie together. So I thought, I'm just gonna tell different things, little snapshots, and because that's all they seem to be in his version. So I lost you for a second. Okay.
Sorry,
am I back?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. I'm seeing that my battery just got low. I'm going to tell my wife to bring up the charger.
Okay.
So I'll do that in a second. So for Come Along Betty, at the time I was reading my daughter this children's book, and I just started, almost as a joke, I started just singing this story of the book. Like, he left my home a week ago, now I'm standing at your window, and it's this basically story of this pig in the book. And but it doesn't sound like that. It's evocative of any kind of traveling or something, and then it was just my daughter would find it funny that I was telling the story of her book to the audience. I'd come back from one of my shows and I was like, I told Paloma the story of the pig, but only because she thought it was so funny that she was the only one who knew about that. And then one verse was, I talk about Steam Train Girl riding up and down, and that was just from a time when we were up in there's this one real old steam train in a town called Felton, it's just like in the mountains above Santa Cruz. It's like Central Coast, California, and they have this real steam train that you can ride around the redwoods. And I just thought, I'm going to sing about that. And then the last little verse is about these bottles of a friend of mine who passed away when we were 21 now. And just for some reason, this image of my wife and I went to her house. Her parents let us go take things. Like, what do you guys want to take of Jessica's? And we were like, well, this her bottle collection. I just wanted her bottle collection because growing up, we were friends since second grade, and I would bring her bottles, and she had old bottles, and I remember bringing her back these funny bottles from Japan that has a ball in it that goes up and down. Anyways, so we left with her bottle collection, and so for some reason that made it into the end of the song. It was all just, it was just these little moments again, because that was kind of how Uncle Dave did it. It wasn't always like a through line, like a story that starts here and ends there. It was kind of just these little verse, and then he sings his chorus, and then another little verse that maybe is something different. And that was I liked working that way, and I liked thinking that way.
Yeah, it sounds like a fun way to do it. So is that different from your usual writing style?
Yes. I put out a record before this, which was my first time I had written or sung my own songs, and it's called Fuchsia Machu Picchu. And those are more, I don't know if you'd say linear, but I guess it was however I wrote these songs for the first time. The Fuchsia Machu Picchu is a kind of plant, which was the first plant we planted in our house we bought. And it wasn't doing well, and I started singing to it. And then it just, out of just kind of singing this Fuchsia Machu Picchu chant, the song came out of that. That could be something. My songwriting tip for the second part of this podcast is sing to your plants, because because there's really that pro tip one from Joachim Cooder is sing to your plants.
Sing to your plants.
Because
I've got a plant here. Look at this poor thing. That definitely needs singing.
It needs you to sing to it.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. So it sounds like you've got a very kind of like natural, relaxed way of writing stuff. That things, you kind of let things come through you in that way, rather than sitting down with This is what I'm going to write now. And
I've never been able to do that. There's like there are songwriters who I admire greatly who go every day. It's like they go to the office in a way. Like they get in there and they start writing. And but then Nick Lowe, who I love very much as a songwriter and as a player and as a person, he always talks about something which I think is so incredible and true, which is he calls it the bloke, where it's like if he's visited, it's almost like he how does he say it? It's like he's visited by the bloke. If the bloke comes to him with the song, it's like as if he didn't write it himself. Like it comes down from somebody else, which he refers to as the bloke. And everything else he does is him trying to copy that. Like it's like it's not, and he knows when it's the bloke, and he knows when it's him trying to do like an imitation of it. And I think that's a really true point, because all my favorite stuff that I've done, I look back on it, I'm like, I don't remember struggling or thinking how will I do it. Like it all kind of, it's like a puzzle that just kind of moves around and then just goes like wink. Whereas when I'm struggling, I just know right away, I'm like, this is not, I'm trying to imitate myself. And I always see that right away. I'm like, oh, that's not, this is never going to be good. Even if I sit there and pound away, like it's never going to come to fruition. But then there's people like John Hyatt, who I think is an incredible songwriter. And he works, oops, you know what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
I'm going to quickly get a charger.
Yeah.
Can I do that really quickly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. So yeah, you were just talking about John Hyatt's style of writing.
Oh yeah. He goes, I always was under the impression that he went to write every day. And with that kind of, as if you were going to your job, like he and I mean, wrote many incredible songs. So I just, everybody has their different way they approach it. And that's pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, definitely. I really like that, the bloke way of describing it.
Me too.
Yeah, I hadn't heard it put that way before. I've heard the kind of, those kind of ideas of like, I've heard Dylan talk about a lot of that scene. Like he didn't know who wrote them songs really, or a lot of his songs that just kind of came through him in a way, and like he couldn't write them if he tried. But then that feeling of imitating it as well. Like it's kind of chasing something, isn't it? Like there's moments where you just have that inspiration and it's just there and you're in the zone, and other times where you imitating yourself is a good way of putting it as well.
Yeah, I can feel it right away.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Definitely. Brilliant. So let's move into section 2 now, shall we? This is where I ask my guests to share with us a songwriting tip. So we've already had a couple of tips in there, but a good one about singing to your plants. What's your next tip for us?
Well, I thought about two things. One, to bring it back to how I did the Uncle Dave record, which was, I was almost working with kind of like an outline of form, like a form and like a lyrical rhythm that was my guide. Like I was taking out his lyrics and putting in my own, and then sometimes there was changing the melody, but it was basically I was working within his confines, or I'm not sure what the word would be, but I had limitations that I was working under, and I think that was a really good way to work, because it's kind of like you had to stick to, it's like if you set limitations for yourself, you kind of have to do, you're saying you have to do it in this way. And at the time for me, it's felt like a really kind of a neat way to go, because I sort of picked and I took sort of where he started as a jumping off point and kind of then just steered it in a different direction, but keeping his, his like an outline, like if like your outline of a story,
mm-hmm.
you just have to plug it in almost, or something like that. And you also could find yourself veering so far away that you've now taken it completely out of, it's no longer an Uncle Dave song, it's become your own song. And I know that is a thing that people did in folk music. I mean, you mentioned Bob Dylan. I mean, he took a lot of, I think he was pretty brazen with his borrowing in a way. I mean, I think there was some, and there was old songs where people took, rewrote folk songs and kept certain things, and with public domain music, you can do that. You can, if it's over 100 years old or something, there's you're allowed to do that. So I think that's kind of that could be a fun thing for somebody to work in that way and see how far you can take it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you take it completely out of the realm altogether. That I did that with a couple that I took off the record because I started somewhere and it became so radically altered that it didn't fit anymore. Like it went too far out of the right away you're working on something, and at a certain point you look back on, you're like, this has gone too far out of the realm of something that fits with the rest of the music. And so it kind of just became my own song, and I don't know what happened to it, but so that's one tip. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so kind of using something else as a starting point and having like a framework for what you're trying to do, to work within.
Yeah. And you can play with how much you want it to be really exact with maybe it's just the rhythm of each line. You want it to fit the way he did it, but you're writing all new words, or maybe you can change the music but keep the words, and then find there's ways of going about inspiring yourself if you give yourself rules sometimes.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, isn't it? It's kind of like, it feels almost counterintuitive that sometimes imposing restrictions gives you more freedom in a way, if that makes sense.
That's how I felt with this one. Because it can mean anything. You can say, the notion of "come along, buddy." It's just, those words just sound nice, or not nice, but they have just like something. It's evocative of something, but it doesn't have to be evocative of only what he was on about. Like you can be, you can make things mean your own thing, or you can keep things real abstract, which I like to do, because then other people can maybe put in their own meaning if you're not too on the nose all the time.
Yeah Sounds like a fun way of working. And I guess you could do it with different art forms as well, couldn't you? So like you say, you've done it with the Uncle Dave songs, but like somebody could take like a poet's work and then say they're gonna put music to that, or an instrumentalist's work and then put some lyrics to that, or there's many different ways of doing it, whether you're going to change every line or change the melody in different parts, or change some lines and not others. And there's a lot of scope for it.
Yeah.
And particularly, I guess, because one of the problems people have, I think, with getting started with songwriting is what to write about. Like it's
right.
That's almost where that, when you've got anything to write about, it can be hard to choose anything to write about. But if you've got a narrower window of this is what I'm working in, it kind of gets you going a bit more, doesn't it?
Exactly. The other thing I was thinking of is with some of the stuff on Fuchsia Machu Picchu, is my first record. I took things that I heard my daughter say, because she would say certain things that was so perfect, but so strange, and just not from like a normal adult mind. But it wasn't stuff that's like, oh, that's some gibberish that like a baby said. I mean, like, it was some real high level kind of genius stuff that, well, I was like, oh, that is going to be a song, and it's going to be amazing. And I think listening, just always listening to everything all the time that people say, but really listening to stuff that your kids say, because they're like in touch with some, I feel like that those young minds have a way of getting to like the heart of the matter in these funny ways. And, that's why when well, not anymore because nobody goes to restaurants, but when we'd go to eat at a restaurant and I would see like two parents and one kid, and the kid is on like an iPad or a phone, I'm like, are you guys seriously going to squander? You so can't stand to talk to your child for like 1 hour that you have to just put a thing in front of their face. I'm like, it's everybody's loss. You guys are all losing. It's so sad because you're missing opportunities. There's so many opportunities to hear things and connect with people and your own children that I see not happening, and it makes me insane. Yeah. So that's my second tip, I would say, is very much listen to. I should probably keep a little notebook, like a little tiny, just a little thing to jot things down, because once you open your ears and mind to that way of thinking, I feel like then you start to hear things even more and more and more. But yeah, my favorite thing is listening to what my kids say.
Yeah,
to get ideas.
That sounds like a great resource. Yeah. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. 2 for 1, or 3 for 1 if you count the plant one.
Plant one. That's the main thing. That's how it got me started.
Brilliant. Let's move into section 3 now, shall we? This is where I ask my guests to share with us a song that relates in bereavement, a song that's meaningful to them in some way relating to bereavement. And what I do here is I put the link in the description. So if you're listening to this at home and you're not familiar with the song, you can click the link, listen to it, and come back and we're going to have a bit of a chat about it. So what song did you choose for us today?
I chose You by Juliette Comagere, and she's also my wife. And I play on that song, and well, let's listen to it, and then.
Great stuff, yeah.
Did we already listen to it? Okay.
Well, the link's in the description, so people listening to it can check it out and come back to us.
Okay.
Are you playing percussion on it?
Yeah, I play percussion, and we produced it together, and this one is something where this is after her grandmother died, and so she's wrote this song about she's going through her things, which I think is such everything was just, it's all laid out the way it was the moment, she's all of this person's things are still right there, as if they're still right, as if they're just going to walk out of the door and be come out of another room and just be right there, as if like she was the minute before she passed away. She's really just listing these things, like her pillows and her jewelry and her photographs and her hairbrush, and she just says she will carry these things. I will carry these things for you. And I love that notion so much. And I mentioned, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but there's something about putting things in a certain way that's not so completely obvious or not so on the nose about saying exact, keeping it a little more abstract. And I feel just the seeing somebody, you're just looking through this person's things on that, that's all it is on one level, but it really, it's each of these things are talismanic. There's so much power behind each one of these things, each little piece of silver, and the hair and her hairbrush and all that stuff. And it's really, that song is just very powerful to me. Every time I hear it.
Yeah, it's very powerful. And I mean, that's an element. It's something like, there's all these different parts of bereavement that like most people don't think about, and that's one of them. What, like, I haven't thought about that in a long time, but if you're talking about it then, made me think back to after my grandmother died and going to see her house. And again, it's just like the house is still there, but she's not anymore. And yeah, it's just one of the things it is a very strange experience, isn't it? Things are just left as if the person's going to come and pick them up again, and then someone else you've got to decide what to do with them.
Exactly. And we go sometimes, there's estates. I don't know if they have the same type of thing, like you can go to estate sales where it's like an entire house of things is being sold, and it's because these people or this person, they passed away, and so now they're selling this entire house of things, and all these people are in there, and you can sometimes get good deals on things. And like we got a patio, like a 1960s patio furniture set from this house, but on the other hand, you're just going through, you're like, this is somebody's entire life, that just, of all the things they collected and all the things they surrounded themselves with and loved, or didn't, but had. And it became, it was hard to separate that from these things. It was like these things were there was so much like emotion. We didn't even know these people, but we're like, this is too, like, even though we got a great deal on this patio furniture set, we were kind of like, I don't think we can go back to this. Like, I don't think we can go to another one of these. It was just too, like, I don't know, like, it's so like, there's just all these things are just like left to be just scattered. But I'm not saying it's not like they should be buried like with their things like the pharaohs of Egypt. I mean, that's not what I don't know. It's just, it's just hard to not think about those things.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, just burying someone with all the cutlery and all the towels.
Yeah, exactly. Everything goes into my coffin. I must take it all.
Yeah. I don't think we have them over here. If we do, I've not heard of them. Yeah, and then what is it? Just someone there? Is it somebody from the family that sells the stuff, or is it someone hired to? Like, is someone there that you haggle with?
I think the family hires an estate sale person. I don't know what their name is, but what it's called. And it's, there's a lot of old houses near where we live. And there's, like they have these beautiful there's the mid-century houses from the 50s and 60s. So everything kind of has that feel. And then there's the old Spanish style houses, and you kind of, it's, and then there's all these people, like you can get everything, like furniture, plates, art. sometimes the art that was on their walls, spoons, fixing spoons. Yeah, and it's less expensive, and it's nice to have. We like old things. We don't. We live in an old house, and we just very much like old everything to be just have a feel to it. So it's a good way to go. But we kept commenting like, God, of all, this couple or this whoever lived here, and we're just in amongst all of their things that got left behind and are now just being rifled through.
Yeah, strange thing.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's a beautiful song. It's very powerful, and again, it's another one of them just beautiful observations, isn't it? Like you were saying about being aware of like things your daughter says, and knowing that that's a song there of Juliet to think about that situation. And I don't think of it's not, again, it's not another song that I can think of that deals with that, expresses that in that way. It's not a common theme in songs to, there's a lot of songs about bereavement, but that angle of it, of what's left behind in that way, again, it feels very original. So it's very well observed of it to see that and write a song about it.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to share it with everybody. I love it. It's a great record.
Yeah, it's a great song. Yes, thank you very much for your time, Joachim. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I did too.
And I can highly recommend your record to anyone listening to go and listen to the whole thing. It's I've listened to a lot over the last few months. And,
that's so great to hear.
More. And we talked briefly before the podcast, but about hopefully getting some touring over here, hopefully later in the year, maybe.
Well, there's dates being booked or reserved or however they're doing it for November, and so Leeds is on there, and Manchester and London and Bristol, some other names that I wasn't familiar with, and I'm hoping to really want to go to Galway in Ireland, and I think there's an Edinburgh date. So I hope. It's hard to imagine. I know we were talking about how you did an outdoor thing, but it's hard even to watch movies I look at all these people in a room together and I'm like, what do you guys do? What are you doing? It's hard to watch anything now where you see people. So I'm just thinking like playing in front of a bunch of people, it seems really hard to imagine. But I mean, I hope everybody, I heard from some people in Italy that they're kind of going back now to another extreme lockdown. So I guess we just have to hope that everybody gets their vaccine or something, or I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, touch wood, it all kind of keeps moving forward in the right direction. We don't have to go back to any more lockdowns, and things can just get back to some form of normality. But yeah, that'd be great to see you in Leeds if you can. As I mentioned to you, around my birthday time in November, so that'd be do you know what venue you're looking at in Leeds? I'm putting you on the spot a bit there.
I don't. What day is your birthday?
The 7th.
The 7th. I think that's right before. I think the first thing would be like, I know that there's a London on the 12th. Let me see. Okay, Leeds. Do you know Howard Assembly Rooms?
Howard Assembly Rooms, yeah.
Do you know that?
Yeah, it's a nice venue.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great venue. Actually, that'd be lovely to see you in there. It's a very atmospheric place.
Okay.
Brilliant.
People of Leeds, Howard Assembly Rooms. You heard it here first.
Yeah. I'll be first in line for my ticket when it's on sale.
Now, I don't think any of this is set in stone yet, so I don't want to,
Yeah.
But that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah. We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Okay.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks a lot for your time, and I wish you all the best with the rest of the record, and hopefully see you in November. All
right. Well, we'll be in touch. Do I have one of us? We'll be we'll be in communication and make sure I'll let you know when things come together.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, thank you.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your time, Joachim. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me again. Okay.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll talk
Thank you.
soon.
Cheers. Thank
Okay.
you. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'll be back with another episode soon.